This morning too, and the skies are mainly clear. There's a big moon up there this morning. It's full officially overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, and we call it the full moon of September, the corn moon. Nonetheless, you're going to notice the humidity creeping up today as well, and that's going to fuel some downpours. Not so much today across most of the region locally, but as we get into tonight, Thursday, even Wednesday rather, even lingering into Thursday. But all the while, we're tracking the latest on Hurricane Irma. This has strengthened even more this morning. Hard to believe. Category 4 winds 150 miles per hour, and it is moving toward the west, still about 14 miles per hour. It's a good 300 miles from the Leeward Islands, where there are hurricane warnings up. Those extend out toward Puerto Rico as well, and it is going to brush across these areas during the overnight hours, and you can see it very close to the Virgin Islands here by 2 o'clock on Wednesday. From there, it maintains that Category 4 strength, moving through the Turks and Caicos, and then look where it is by Sunday at 2 a.m. So Saturday night, this is very close to South Florida, down near the Keys. And from here, if you extrapolate this, it almost looks like it might be going back out into the Gulf of Mexico. That is not necessarily the case, because the steering currents in our atmosphere look as though they're going to scoop this up and cause it to turn to the north. Perhaps not so much now targeting the Carolinas. A lot of our computer models are making that turn right up through Florida and then having this weakening over the southeast. So we have a lot of time to watch this still, but it does look like the threat is increasing over the state of Florida. That may be impacted by Hurricane Irma this weekend, so stay tuned. Temperatures in the 60s out the door this morning. It's kind of a warm start, breezy too. Winds kick it up out of the southwest. They're going to be with us all day long. Sustained winds close to 20. We will have some gusts over 20 miles per hour, and that is bringing in the warmth and the humidity. Mid and upper 80s today, away from the south coast and the Cape, where highs will be running in the 70s. And you can see not a lot happening on radar now. There are some storms to our north and west, and these are focused along a frontal boundary that is just creeping along. It's a real slow-moving front, and as it kind of shifts eastward a little bit today, it's going to keep those storms out across western New England, southern Vermont, and New Hampshire. And with higher humidity moving up from the south, you're going to notice the muggy air in place today into tomorrow as well before it dries out toward the end of the week. So notice much of the day here is quiet. We get into the afternoon and evening. All the storms are to the west. They come in overnight, and I do think we're waking up to some storms tomorrow morning. Now, temperatures overnight fall back into the 60s only. It's going to be a muggy night for sleeping, and not as warm tomorrow in the 70s. And you can see where those showers are. Yeah, we'll have some around in the morning, but during the afternoon, more showers and thunderstorms, some downpours develop. These are going to be slow moving with the potential for some heavier rain right through tomorrow night into early Thursday. It now looks like we're going to clear this front out during the day on Thursday, and that we should dry out for the Patriots game, the home opener down at Gillette on Thursday evening. We should be drying out, and we should hang on to that dry weather for the upcoming weekend.
Can't believe it's that time of
And a good Tuesday to you. I'm meteorologist Cindy Fitzgibbon. Big update from the Hurricane Center this morning. Look at the winds now with Hurricane Irma. Category 5. Winds are up to 175 miles per hour, and that is rare. In fact, this is the strongest hurricane in the Atlantic since Felix back in 2007. That also had winds of 175 miles per hour. So this is the strongest hurricane in the Atlantic in about a decade now. Last year we did have Matthew. That came up to a Category 5, you may remember, but the winds with that were 165, and the strongest, in case you're wondering, on record had 190 mile per hour winds in the Atlantic, and that was Allen back in 1980. So where is this going to go? Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to maintain this Category 5 strength as it's making its way across the northern Leeward Islands and also the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And you can see here, that takes us into about 2 o'clock on Wednesday, so tomorrow afternoon. From here, it continues this west-northwesterly track, which is going to take it by the Turks and Caicos into the Bahamas between here and Cuba, and this cone does include South Florida. The center of this forecast to be Category 4 here by Saturday night, Sunday 2 a.m. and you can see it is sitting just south here of the tip of Florida, down near the Florida Keys. And keep in mind, this track is pretty large. It does extend all the way down into Cuba as well. But from here, you look at this and it looks like it still might be going west into the Gulf. What we're expecting are the upper level steering currents to kind of pick this up and turn it toward the north. The question still remains, is that going to happen and turn it more toward the east side of Florida or turn it up into the Gulf? And you can see there is still somewhat of a spread in our computer models, but if you follow the center line here, this has a huge impact on Florida through the weekend and into early next week, because this would then be dissipating over the southeast by early next week. So we're going to watch this very closely for you, certainly in the days ahead. But folks in Florida need to have that evacuation plan ready to go. In In the meantime, we've got a pretty nice warm summer-like day around here. Hazy sunshine giving way to some building afternoon clouds. Temperatures coming up into the 80s this afternoon, mid, even a few upper 80s away from the south coast and the Cape. That southwesterly wind may gust over 20 miles per hour, and it's bringing up higher humidity. The dew points are climbing into that uncomfortable range into the mid 60s, and that's where they're going to stay for the next couple of days. We have soupy air now out ahead of a frontal boundary, and this front triggering a few storms back across western New York State this morning. That front is moving so slowly that the storms are only going to inch closer to us as the day goes on. So out in the western part of the state, southern Vermont into southwest New Hampshire, that's where we could find some storms going by later this afternoon into this evening. And the Storm Prediction Center giving us a slight chance that a few of these turn severe with some damaging wind potential and also some hail being a secondary threat. But in the Boston area, you can see right on up until this evening, it stays dry. The focus of those storms off to the west through this evening, and then overnight, they'll die down a little bit, but they'll be drifting eastward in the form of some downpours, maybe a rumble of thunder. And you can see we're still going to have some lingering showers around first thing tomorrow morning. Now look at the temperatures overnight, holding in the 60s to near 70. So it's going to be a real muggy night. And with that front basically stuck on top of us tomorrow, we are going to keep these periodic showers and downpours going throughout the day. In fact, even into early Thursday. Then this front gets a kick eastward and we'll start to dry things out. The potential, though, is there for some heavy rain that could lead to some localized flooding with these storms, perhaps over a couple of inches of rain with some of these storms that start to move on through. We will begin to dry things out for you on Thursday, and that is good news because the Patriots, of course, have their home opener on Thursday night, 8:30. Should be drying out at that point with temperatures in the 60s. And once we clear things out on Friday, look at the temperatures. They are trending down a bit cooler for the weekend.
Understandably so, with how devastating this storm could be. It really is a monster storm.
It keeps getting stronger.
It does. Yeah. The wind's now up to 180 miles per hour. Those winds stronger than the winds during Katrina and also the winds during Hurricane Andrew. So this is a powerful hurricane. Cannot stress that enough. And one of the strongest on record in more than a decade, actually, in the Atlantic Basin since Rita in 2005. Only 4 storms in the Atlantic have had winds greater than 180 miles per hour. So you can see this storm is certainly going to go down in the record books for that reason. We have hurricane warnings which extend from the Leeward Islands in Puerto Rico. Hurricane watches now from the Dominican Republic and Haiti all the way up into southeastern Bahamas. This storm is moving westward and it is not forecast to weaken much. In fact, it's going to maintain this Category 5 strength as it goes through the Leeward Islands and the Virgin Islands and then near Puerto Rico as well. From there it continues westward, likely going just north of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, but you can see it goes right through the Turks and Caicos here, weakening some to a Category 4, but still winds over 100 miles per hour. And look how the cone widens anywhere from the eastern side here, east of the Florida Peninsula, all the way down to western Cuba. The farther out in time we go, this would take us into the weekend here early on Sunday morning. The confidence in exactly where this is going to go comes down a little bit. That westward track is forecast to turn northward as the upper level winds look to grab this and steer it to the north. But the question becomes exactly where that turn happens, and that's why the spread gets wider with our computer models as we get out farther in time. But you can see there will likely be impacts in Florida and perhaps the southeastern United States as we get from the weekend into early next week. And you know what? Irma is not the only storm out there. There's a brand new one behind it. This is Jose. Winds are 40 miles per hour. This too forecast to become a hurricane by the weekend. And you can see it's going to take a similar track to where Irma is right now. So there is a lot going on in the tropics. This is the peak of the hurricane season, and we'll keep you posted every step of the way. We have sunshine out there right now. Is it warm? 82 degrees, southerly wind gusting now over 20 miles per hour, and that wind has brought in high humidity, dew points in the upper 60s to near 70. So the air mass is very soupy, and you know what? It's going to stay that way right through the day tomorrow, and the humidity drops slowly here as we get toward the end of the week. All of this moisture in the atmosphere is pooling out ahead of a frontal boundary, which is triggering storms off to our west, and that front is going to make very little progress today. So the farther west that you go, western half of the state up into southern Vermont, parts of southern New Hampshire, that's where we could get some storms going out ahead of that frontal boundary as we get toward late this afternoon and this evening. I do not expect them in the Boston area. It should be dry right through this evening for your evening plans closer to the city. But here you can see on Futurecast, a couple of storms make their way from western Massachusetts to near Worcester County by about 5, 6 o'clock, and then they fall apart before they can get into the Boston area. I think after midnight, that is when we could see some downpours, a few rumbles of thunder. So we're waking up to some wet weather coming up on Wednesday morning. Look at the temperatures in the upper 60s for overnight lows, so pretty uncomfortable for sleeping. And this front stalls out right on top of us tomorrow. That's going to keep some periodic downpours going. It's going to be Thursday when this front shifts eastward and will begin the process of drying out. The potential, though, there for 1 to 2 inches or more of rainfall from this system. And we will start out the day tomorrow, I think, with some wet weather around. This could impact the morning commute, but we'll see more showers and downpours possible throughout the day. And because there's so much moisture in the air, wherever it rains, it could rain hard, and that could lead to some localized poor drainage flooding. Should clear things out, though, by the end of Thursday, and that's good news for folks headed to that Patriots opener down at Gillette.